Hey everybody, welcome to the Herd Fit Podcast with Dr. Sam Rhee and myself, Coach David Syvertsen. This podcast is aimed at helping anyone and everyone looking to enhance their healthy lifestyle through fitness, nutrition, and most importantly, mindset. All right, welcome back to the Herd Fit Podcast. I am Coach David Syvertsen here with Dr. and Coach Sam Rhee. We are going to discuss today, what is it like to have an online coach? Over the course of time, there are a lot of people that, especially when they get really specific with goals, especially in the competitive space, there is a huge market right now for online coaching, virtual coaching, one-on-one coaching. And I'll say this, back in 2014, 2015, when Bison opened and I started to really want to get into the sport a little bit more once we got this place off the ground, that's when I was really tight with Dallas, and that's all we talked about was competitive CrossFit. There were a lot of free blogs online that had a competitor program, and Invictus was probably like the main one back then. And that was really the first time where I, as a coach and programmer at CrossFit Bison, would do my workouts, and I really wanted to do some more work. I wanted something else. Not, I would say, in place of my programming at Bison. It was in addition. And back then, that was the infancy of the sport still, and it was just do more intensity, more volume, do everything you can. There's so many things you got to do in the sport. You got to do them all, right? And we had the capacity back then. We were young, didn't have kids, and our bodies recovered a lot easier back then. So Dallas and I would do Invictus programming in addition to Bison. And it was like 2 to 3 hours a day of training minimum. And it was really just Bison WOD, 15 minutes later, Invictus strength session, and then Invictus Metcon, and then something else. And it was just, that's basically what we were doing. We were just doing your traditional mixed modal CrossFit Metcons over and over and over again. Do you remember that kind of era back then?
Yeah, I remember Invictus programming being super popular and a lot of people adding that on. Yeah. I think now it's more individual coaching, not so much following a programming track. Everyone wants to have a coach that's specifically training you, which I forgot to tell you. I hired Shane Orr for $15,000 a month, and I'm going to become a games athlete.
All right, yeah.
Because that's what happens, right? Yeah. You hire a super awesome coach, and suddenly you're going to be games bound at this point.
Yeah, so that's where this business kind of started off. You know, you had, CrossFit.com was like the founding father of all this, right? A workout that would appear on a website, you would just do it. And then these CompTrain, Invictus, Mayhem, they basically had what I would call template programs. And what a template program is, what a gym program is at Bison. It's a workout for a group of people, not for you as an individual. And it works to a certain point. And this is where the OPEX model comes in. And they like to say that they really are the founding fathers of Training Think Tank, Proven, all these companies that kind of like, you know, that take like bits and pieces of what CrossFit has done with individual coaching. And the template training would bring everyone together, do the same workout, no matter what your strengths or weaknesses are. I remember just listening to this made a lot of sense in the OPEX course. It's sometimes, yes, you get lucky that program really focused on a lot of your weaknesses. So you left that program saying, wow, this is a great program because it helped me get from point A to point B. But the person next to you did the same program, has a different strength and weakness repertoire as you, and they did not get better. They did not see the gains that you did. And it was because that program was not made for them. So as the sport grew and more people really wanted to get to a higher level, you started to figure out pretty simply that I need specific program for what I need work on. Like the big, strong lifters that can't move their body well, they need to have programs that help set themselves up for better body movement. Guys that are really good gymnasts and can move their bodies well need more strength bias program. And so that kind of started more and more. I want to say I started to see that more and more 2016, 17, 18. And then now it's, I would say, here we are, 2022, it's rampant.
I think you can find specific track programming for competitors, masters, gymnasts, you name it. I can't believe how many there is, but that has always been the knock. And I see more and more people, like, for example, I was on the CompTrain Facebook group, and there's just more and more people saying, yeah, if you're lucky and this fits your needs, great. It's like a shoe. Yeah. But if that shoe don't fit, then, you know, it's not going to help you.
Yeah. So, you know, that's where I kind of, I want to say the fall of 2019 is when I started to kind of seek out a coach. I wanted an online coach for one reason was kind of selfish, was I just wanted to not have to plan everything out. I would just have a lot going on, and I wanted to outsource the amount of time and energy to just have someone plan my stuff for me, and I would just do it, right? I open up my phone, I see the workout. Like, I'm envious of people at Bison and even some people on Next Level where it's like, hey, here's the workout. All right, done. And they don't have to think about, oh, wait, I'm doing this today, but I'm doing this on my own tomorrow, but I'm doing this from that program on Wednesday. Oh, crap, it's the same movement patterns. I'm going to get hurt. So that's where kind of like my thought was to go into that. It was a competitive program. It was called Conquer, and Conquer kind of also stemmed from OPEX, and have a lot of respect for those guys. Jason Layden from CrossFit Milford, big-time games coach, has been a CrossFit games coach for a long time, very well known in the sport community, and he hooked me up with one of their coaches kind of under him. His name was Dom, and awesome guy, great story too. I would love to get him on at some point once we start doing some virtual stuff, which we have some stuff in the works with that. But that was the first time I had my own online coach, and that was a cool introduction for me. And I'll kind of just reflect on that process a little bit. Having that individual coach, it meant a lot early on that like you had someone checking in on you and your scores. And I would ask him all the time, I'm like, dude, how am I doing? Like, I need to know, like, am I doing well? Am I doing poorly? Like, what? Like, I know what my strengths and weaknesses are, but how bad are my weaknesses? How good are my strengths? Like, where do I sit? And the reason why I would ask him was, Sport A is at some point you're going to be compared to others, right? Like, that really is. You rank here, you get to qualify for this. You don't rank here, you don't get to qualify for that. And they have so many athletes under that umbrella where you can really get a legitimate answer. And I think that's one thing that when you enter this online coaching service, that's a big perk of that comes from it, is there is a whole nother bubble of athletes that you never had exposure to that you can either compete with online, compare with online, and that can kind of set you up for your sport, whatever your goal is.
Remember, you also come at it from the other side of it, because I started on Next Level with you as an athlete.
2017.
And you first started with basically just the way this programming has evolved. So at first it was basically a track. It was set for everybody.
Yep.
You did workouts. You didn't have to do all of them. You could sort of pick and choose a little bit, but it wasn't that we got so much customization or feedback from what we did. We'd log what we do, and then it progressed and changed. And then you started customizing it. It became more athlete specific and feedback specific. I would say your role as a online coach has also evolved along with the methodology.
Right. And I've always tried to blend my experience as an athlete and as a coach and really intertwine them. Like, I never want to have a disconnect from athletes that I coach. And that's why I there are coaches that say this, that you cannot compete and coach at the same time. And I'm not going to argue it. I mean, that would be a cool topic to talk about sometime, just, talk about both sides of that argument. But I've always felt this way, that if I am trying to get better as an athlete, it should make me better as a coach. If I can track that mentally, right? If I want to become better as a coach, it should make me a better athlete. Because I've been on that experience of, hey, I'm paying a coach now, and it was a gym membership. It wasn't $30 a month, $40. It was a gym membership. Like what a Bison gym membership is, that's what I was paying my coach. And it was a template program. And at some point, you start to really almost empathize with what I've heard from athletes on Next Level that I've been coaching. It's like, hey, these workouts are cool, and my capacity is getting a little bit better. Like, I love the intensity. I love the feeling that I'm doing extra work. I feel more prepared. I feel that I'm recovering better. I remember that's one of the first things you ever said, just because you're simply doing more volume, right? But then you start to realize, like, there's something missing. I'm not really, and I still remember the early days of Next Level, like what it was. Basically, I wrote a program, and then I would send it to everyone via email, and I would start crossing things out, like, hey, you don't need to do this, but do that. You don't need to do this, but do that. And that's when the slight individual track started, but it wasn't an individual program yet. And that's another reason why back then it was much cheaper. And so after a while, and this is also the pandemic came, Brock was born, walked away from that online coach Conquer, nothing personal against them at all, loved them. It was kind of like a schedule thing, having a kid, going through the pandemic. But that was one thing I started to realize. You're by yourself a lot. If you really are going to buy into an individual online coaching program, you're by yourself. And when you're at a gym like this, where it's like such group filled, the classes are awesome, the competitiveness in this gym is as good as you're going to find in a gym, you're by yourself. And at some point, discipline, I hate to admit this, but sometimes you lose your discipline a little bit. Like you just can't get after it as hard as you can with a group of people.
Absolutely.
And I think let's talk about that a little bit, of that process of being by yourself and the advantages and disadvantages. You've done a lot of next level workouts or whatever.
Yep, I have.
Or even like your own training on your own.
Yep.
Let's talk about the difference of being in a group, doing a template program that is not for you, Sam Rhee, but comparing that to a workout that is for you, Sam Rhee, but you're by yourself.
It really depends on the type of workout and the situation. I'm lucky that I have a lot of equipment at home.
Right.
So I can do whatever I want. I could probably do most of the class programming at home. And when I first started with Next Level, my experience was this. It took me a while to figure out how to coordinate everything, because if you're doing additional programming in addition to class programming, and if you like class programming, like I like class programming, then that becomes a challenge. And I would want to ask you later about doing that, doing the programming for Bison, doing the programming for athletes at Bison who were also doing additional programming.
Right. Yep.
And I know you were wrestling a lot with that. But for me as an athlete, it was great because it helped me shore up. The shoe fit for me for a lot of things.
Yep.
It stinks when you get injured and then you have to drop a lot of stuff.
Right.
And then you have to kind of figure out what you need to pick up on. I would say the things that worked best by myself was the strength training.
Okay.
So anything that was programmed, like working on hang cleans and like percentage weights, deficit deadlifts, technique work, where I had to video myself and work on specific forms. That really works well by yourself because there's no motivation needed.
Right. There's not like it's not adrenaline based.
No. But if I can guarantee you any kind of WOD based or AMRAP or
like short circuit conditioning,
Metcon stuff, consistently 10 to 15% below what I would probably do in class. Minimum.
So and that's what that's the same thing I kind of struggled with too. Now, as I took that OPEX course in the fall of 2020. And then in the winter of 2021, I went into OPEX's competitor program. It was called Big Dogs at the time. They've rebranded it to Crafted Coaching now, but it's the same coach, same company, right? And that was the first time I had my own personal online coach that was making my own personal program. So it was not a template. Yes, you would see people doing the same workouts, but he kind of would tweak things here, tweak things there. And whether it's percentages, weights, like I know he had a lot of other clients too that were in the sport. And every now and then I'm like, oh, we're all doing the same workout. But it's after, in the 2 sessions after that, were our own kind of like, all right, this is what you need to work on. This is what you need to work on. And this is where I struggled with the most in regard to this program was I went all in on this guy and everything. I did everything he told me to do for 18 months, unless there was an injury that popped up. We had to kind of move things around. And I never wanted to, as a gym owner, I never wanted to get away from the gym. This was probably my biggest struggle. I tried to do all of my training outside of class times. If I had to do stuff during a class, like if you have ever seen me doing my own workout from that coach in a class, it was because I absolutely had to. Brock, Ashley, the work, the gym, my coaching schedule, sleep schedule. And
I know you don't like that because I've been at other gyms where they have competitors in the back doing their fancy special stuff. And then the normies basically in the front who are just like doing the regular WOD. And you didn't want that feeling.
So now we can bring this back to Next Level is whenever I have someone come on Next Level, I do say like, hey, I'm not going to make you only come to the gym. I mean, we have 10 to 11 classes a day. We have more classes than any gym in this area. And we start at 5 a.m. We end now as of this week at 8:15 p.m. That's when the gym closes. There's only an hour and a half. There's only 3 hours during the day where there's not a class going on. If you're a normal person with a normal 9 to 5, you have to do your extra work during classes. And I don't tell people that you're not allowed to, but I do tell them that the class always has priority. Don't make noise while the coach is coaching, whether they're doing the whiteboard talk, the warm up, like you can't be a distraction. Because our gym, our model here has always been the class, and the people in the class are the most important people in the gym at the time. I don't care who you are, all right? Are there little exceptions here if like Dan Cota is doing a qualifier, if we have quarterfinals, semifinals once a year, twice a year? Yes, but day to day, the most important people in our gym are the people that are taking the class. So I've told people that are doing for an example, an assault bike sprint interval piece. Let's say every 2 minutes for 10 minutes, 20-second sprint. they are not allowed to. I will stop them mid-workout if a coach is trying to coach. So I always tell them, like, hey, that's like one of my first talks with anyone that wants to come on. It's like, can you get here during non-class hours? And then also, if you are during here class hours, you need to make sure that you wait till the class is in the middle of their WOD before you start making noise.
I kind of respect that. And I respect the fact that you could probably have set up a competitor's track for maybe 20 or 30 athletes that are particularly good at Bison and to track that. And I think a lot of the better athletes would have been more than happy to do that.
Yep.
But you have been very firm in terms of keeping the group together, which I think in the long, like, it's tempting to.
So tempting. Trust me.
Yeah, I know.
I love coaching the sport, and it's not because I like it more than I like coaching health or the people that don't want to compete. I just love the sport.
Right. But the fact in the long run that all levels, recreational, beginners, people have been high level all together. And we've talked about this before, about it elevates the people who are learning a lot, and it also elevates the people who are extremely experienced and very skilled to have them all together. Now, in the long run, if you are truly competitive, you have to like do your own thing.
Joe Piero, do my own. Like Joe had to get away from classes.
Right.
I had to get away from classes.
Right.
Yeah.
But the philosophy that you've had for the gym, I think ultimately has been for the benefit of all.
Yeah. And again, it's a very interesting debate to have. Like, I've talked about this with Chris since 2015. We've almost gone down this path of doing a competitor class, and just the experience that we have with people, it usually doesn't work out for the gym. And there's a lot of negatives that come. There would be positives. There are people that would benefit from us having a competitor class. But this is where we have to try to think about long run, what is best for Bison. And I hope everyone listening to this from Bison, but I think if you go to a gym too, a good CrossFit gym, I'm sure your owners would say the same thing. We're 10, 15 years into this. There's a lot of case studies that if you really try to separate competitors from your normal gym goers, it usually does a lot of damage. And you can fix it by doing kind of what I think what we're doing right now is working.
Which is?
And having if you want to go into your own personal program to make you better at CrossFit / the sport, you do the Bison programming, but you also will get some individual programming made for you that you have to do on your own in addition to the classes.
You have to be able to handle additional volume, though, because there were times when I was struggling, I would substitute.
As an athlete, you're saying?
Yeah,
okay.
I would have to substitute. I didn't have to, but I chose to substitute a next level workout for a class.
Right.
And I feel like that once you start going down that road, it's detrimental.
It is tough, especially if you are, I don't want to say fragile, but if you don't have the durability that you used to, or like I'll say that I don't have the durability that I used to, and I wish I had more durability, right? And I have had to choose days to not Bison WOD, and I will still continue to do that if I know I'm doing something on my own that could impede that, right? Like I did a workout today, it was bodybuilding conditioning based on what I know I'm doing at Bison this week. You know, you have to, and like I have a lot of experience. I know it's easier for me to just naturally do that and not put a lot of thought into it. And this is where having an online coach can get a little dicey because they're not there for you at all times. So if you're going to have, so when I go back to my experience with Crafted Coaching, I had that online coach for a long time. And the way he programmed was, hey, this is all you're doing. And I would be honest with him and like, hey, like every now and then I'm hopping into these classes. And did I always tell him no? It wasn't that I was hiding it from him, but it was in my head. I'm like, I can handle this. I can handle this. And I mean, who knows? Maybe that's why I started to break down a little bit this past spring. But I have a moral dilemma in my head of saying, I feel like I should be involved with the gym. Is that right or wrong? I don't know. I mean, what's your opinion? There you go. There's your answer. I don't know.
Well, you're the programmer, and if you don't eat your own dog food, you kind of feel weird. Not doing your own WODs.
And I get these I've got this on Friday. I think it was Bill Sanders said it, or Mark Ollie, or both of them. The programming at the gym's gotten a lot harder over the past few years.
Oh my God, so much harder.
And we're going to talk about your L2 experience in a future podcast. And I still remember that day. It's like one of my biggest takeaways is that you do need to program for the best athletes in your gym at that specific kind of workout. And everyone else needs to scale down. And if our gym is going to get more and more fit or fitter and fitter in the years, our program is going to get more difficult. If I have 40 people in our gym that can do 10 muscle ups in a minute, I have to program that stuff at the gym, even though we have 230 people that can't do that.
I'm telling you, when you program in just a regular Saturday, 6 snatches at 105, for 30 minutes.
Yeah, after wall balls, after kettlebells.
And when I know 4 or 5 years ago, it might have been 4 at 75 or 85 tops.
Yep.
Like, I mean, 80 was what the women's weight was this past week.
Yeah, so
that's insane.
The devil's advocate is, if I don't make the programming tougher as people get fitter, right? Then those people that do want to continue to reach for the stars and just try to get better and better, they have to go outsource their programming, and I know you're going to have some CrossFit old school truthers say like, nope, if they just do exactly what the gym program is. But these CrossFit truthers are the seminar staff, in my opinion. Like, they're the superstar coaches, and they're the ones that told me, James Hobart says, you got to program for the best athletes in your gym. And, at some point, it might ruffle some feathers early on to hear that, because we don't like to talk like that way at Bison. Best, like, we all know who the stars and who, but you don't need to talk about it that much, but you do need to program around it.
I just have empathy for the newbies, because being a newbie 4 years ago, way easier than being a newbie now. I mean, it's not that you actually are doing more or less as a newbie, but just in context of everyone else, you're just like, oh, I'm so far behind everybody. And it's like, that's where ego becomes more and more important in terms of learning. Because you have to start the process. You will have to start and improve somewhere. But it just gets harder when the gap seems bigger.
And this is in your head. You see someone that has an online coach in addition to the actual CrossFit class programming that they're doing. And they're saying, wow, that's the only way I'm going to get better, is if I go hire another coach that I do more work. And there are very few people that need more CrossFit to get better at it. Very few. I think if you've been in it for 5, 6, 7 years and you feel like you're at your peak within the current CrossFit programming, then sure, we could talk about more work. But that's another thing I struggle with as a coach, is when someone comes up to me and says like, hey, I'm thinking about doing some extra work, whether it's next level or just some extra work on their own. I found this online program. I'm never against it. It's not always the solution, doing more work, because we've talked about this too. The lifestyle comes first and then the training comes second. And I think that needs to be really cleaned up with a lot of people before they go hire an online coach. Because I'll tell you what, when you have an online coach, yes, they like Crafted helped me out with like nutrition, recovery, all these things. Like, and I never really abused my coach. I'm very low maintenance. I would hear from him once a week. Unless I really needed something, I'd send him a message. He would always send me something back pretty quickly if I had a question. But otherwise, like week to week, he would send me feedback on a Monday about last week's workouts, maybe 2 or 3 sessions, nothing crazy. And I didn't hit him up every 4 hours asking how much water I should drink in between my workouts, what time should I eat my dinner, how many macro. Like, we did talk about it occasionally, but it wasn't something that was constant. You really are on your own for a lot of that time. And then you're also working out on your own without anyone watching other than videos. And no offense, some athletes are terrible at taking videos of themselves. I've seen videos from athletes. I can't even get anything out of it because the angle's so bad. They're not even in the video sometimes. And that's where I think there's a lot of personal responsibility that people don't understand they're going to have. Like, when you hire an online coach, you're hiring help, right? You're hiring someone to do something for you and you're paying them. They're not doing you a favor. You're paying them, right? But there's still a lot of stuff you have to do by yourself. And that's what, in my opinion, if you're going to hire an online coach, if you're thinking about doing it, that is going to be really hard if you're not anticipating it.
Right. So one of the things is you probably might have given more feedback and talked more often to your coach to help him help you.
Yeah.
I know that you're transitioning or have just transitioned from your own online coach to your own programming again.
Yep.
I will have to say my experience has been, for when I was doing Next Level, I was definitely doing more volume. Mm-hmm. I was better at a lot of things. If you saw my numbers back then and you see, what I might be right now, definitely improved. But similar to you, when you add that volume, things start breaking down. At probably like 2 opens or 3 opens in a row, there was something that was nagging. Elbow, knee, and you get through it and generally do okay. But then once I started cutting back and just sticking to class programming.
Great. This is a good point. I'm going to build off this. Keep going.
I got healthier and I actually performed better.
Best open ever for Sam.
Yes. Now, the downside to it, and I could see this, especially when I went to L2 and we were doing squat cleans, some of my numbers are way, way down.
Okay.
Because we touch almost everything in class programming, but probably not as often on my weaknesses that we should.
Yeah.
And I'm not coming in every day. So there are some days I end up missing, and I really should be going back and touch pointing those things. And a lot of that is basically squat programming, lift programming, technique programming. And so even though I know I feel better not adding all that extra volume, which is why I haven't been doing it, I'm now reevaluating and say, okay, maybe not 3 days a week.
Yeah, just one or two.
Maybe one or two, and really touch pointing the things that I'm not touching so much. And I think for a lot of athletes, they might be in the same type of situation.
Yeah. So two things off that I'm going to build off. There was good thoughts there. Number one, the fact that you were on next level for a while, and then you got off it, and then you actually started to feel better, and even I would even say perform better in some ways. In most ways, I would say, not in some ways. In most ways, Sam built up his base, his capacity by doing extra work, and he got better at a lot of things, and it was just because he was doing it more, right? And it wasn't always these hard mechons. It's not like we were having Sam do, Karen every week. Or Murph every week. It was just like a slow, steady 2 to 3 year ride of some extra things, and it really built up. But you, as an athlete, and this is where it gets tough as an online coach, right? Where that eventually might start to catch up. Yeah, you might get to a point, your threshold, where you're kind of blowing through it, and now you're becoming worse because you're banged up. You can't get to the open and really send it and go for it, or you're fearful of getting hurt all the time.
I'm not 25. I'm older than Dan Bailey, who's afraid of injury.
Yeah. And so now Sam takes a step back from next level, starts to feel better day to day. It's not like all this extra work that you did that you're no longer doing didn't mean anything.
No, it helped.
Really built up that base.
Yeah.
And the OPEX model, they teach you this in our course, and I really have taken this in as well. They say at some point after we work with you as a client for years, maybe a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever, you shouldn't need us anymore. And that's one of our goals. And in your head, I'm taking this course, and I'm like, internally, I'm like, yeah, but then you're not getting their money anymore, and they bring that up. They say, hey, we're one-on-one coaches, and to be a successful online coach in their program, I think if you have 30 to 40 clients, like, you're doing well. But I think they actually recommend like 15 to 20. You have to do some math in your head. Are you making enough money to pay your bills and all that stuff, right? But he goes, think about how many people are in this world right now. He goes, 15 to 20, 25 to 30, 35 to 40 people, it's not a lot. If you can work with someone for 3 years, like, that person will get replaced at some point. And that's where my mind started to go with Sam was, Sam does less than he used to. I think he's better than he was 2 years ago. All right. But here's the spin-off to that, where the second part of what you were talking about, there are things that you need probably more work on.
Definitely.
That you did on next level, but you don't do anymore because we don't do them in classes that much. I will say this right now, there are going to be things in classes at the gym that we cannot logistically do, or we're just not going to do because I don't feel good about it. We don't squat snatch a lot at the gym, and we're never going to. I'm never going to ignore it. And we will do cycles, like we usually do one right before the open and one late summer, early fall, what do I usually say when we do snatching? Optional. Squat snatch, optional. The only reason I like to keep it in sometimes a year, pistols, same thing, they might show up in the open, and I don't want to be the coach that would like, no, we're not doing them, and then all of a sudden, oh guys, 23.1, you guys all have to go for a max snatch, and everyone's like, what's that? I don't want to be that coach. I would feel responsible for that. So now that Sam's circling back, his head's spinning a little bit, GHD sit-ups, high volume row climbs, a lot of pistols, like, in his head, he's like, okay, that's going to hurt my knee. That's going to hurt my shoulder. No, but if he really wants to keep on top of that capacity, heavy lifting, right? Like, we do lift every week, but we don't lift that much, in my opinion. We don't. We don't do a ton of strength work. And we do enough, in my opinion. But if you want more, if strength is a weakness of yours, you're going to have to do more.
Yep.
Whether it's on a program or you just do it on your own.
Yep.
Does Sam know enough now to do this on his own because he had an online coach, because he's an L2 coach now? He's been crossfitting for so long.
No, not really. Actually, I'm thinking I'm coming back. I'm coming back to. I know I'm going to need additional outside help, and at some point, it's just I don't want to do more volume yet. So
I know, but
I'll figure. But I will. I know that.
Thank you for being vulnerable like this, though, because this is a tough thing to figure out. And I'm on the same page, dude. And like, I know there's a lot of people listening, whether they're from Bison or from other gyms, like all of our worldwide listeners, that we all want to be as good as possible with this stuff, right? And it's a blessing and a curse where sometimes that online coach, that feeling of someone's doing more for you and giving you more attention and helping you out, it's all good and dandy until you wake up and something hurts.
You know what it is I know I have more potential about certain things.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm not reaching it.
Yeah.
I don't have to like squat clean 265.
Right.
But I used to do 225 for reps.
Yeah.
And I don't now. And I don't know if I can, but I know I can do more than the 205 I'm doing right now.
Here's a question. All right. Remember that question you asked me? Would you add, 3 inches to your waistline if you could snatch? And then here I just got pummeled in the strength events.
And you're like, maybe I would add 3 inches to my belly if I could snatch.
Trust me, I would.
300.
Do you feel good? So what would you rather have right now? Would you rather feel the way you do right now? Like you're feeling pretty good right now, right? Yeah. Generally speaking, right?
Yep.
With this current strength level that you're at, you're not weak, but maybe you're not as strong as you were a year or two ago.
Absolutely.
All right. Would you rather that strength level with your current body feeling or wake up with that achy knee, take you forever to warm up, start to be like, do I really want to do this anymore?
I don't know.
But you can squat clean 225, 235.
I don't know. I you know what I was doing? I was cleaning up. I'll tell you why. All right. I was looking at my Instagram and I was cleaning up and getting rid of some old posts and crap that I didn't like in there.
Okay.
You have to present your best image all the time.
Yeah.
You gotta look at all your old posts.
Yep.
And I saw maybe 2 years, the quarterfinals, it was a 4-rep max front squat.
Front Age Online qualifier last year.
Right. Okay. And I was, and I was squatting pretty heavy.
Yeah.
I didn't make 4, but I hit 2 for 275 or something like that.
And I remember talking to you about this on this podcast, and back then I was like, dude, you can hit that for 4.
And I was like, holy cow.
Yeah.
I can't do that now. I haven't been on a squat program. I haven't been squatting heavy for a long time. And I don't know. And I wouldn't want to or couldn't program myself to do that.
Okay.
Now, how bad do I want it? I want it kind of bad. But do I want it bad enough to injure myself?
Yep.
No. But do I know enough now that I can give better feedback to a coach and institute something and add that back in? Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what this also could do, having a coach, an outside voice, because again, I've done some reflecting for myself. I'm also talking to Adam Ramsden about this, Dan Cota about this, is, hey, what are your thoughts on this? Just that conversation of like, hey, Dave, I was able to squat this 2 years ago. I can't do it now. Like, but I don't want to go into this heavy Smolov squat program 3 days a week and then have to take days off from Bison. Like that might happen if you start squatting a lot, right?
Yep.
And just the conversation helps. And that's one thing I loved about my coach, that, and I'll be honest with this, I trying to have as many conversations with people on Next Level as possible. As a coach, I think I'm a little short there, but I used to have a monthly call with my coach. And it was probably every 6 weeks. And it was a 30 minute call. And we talk about things, but like sometime after those conversations, I always felt good about like, all right, maybe this is a good idea. Now I'm going to be doing a lot of sled work this year. That's one of my reflections that I had, that I want to build strength, but I don't want to squat. Like if I do like a lot of squatting, a lot of cleaning, a lot of snatching, and this might blow up in my face, I'm not going to guarantee it's going to work, but I've done some research on this and looking at some big time coaches. Sled work's a big deal for building muscle mass around the knees and hips, and that's where I feel like that's where I break down the most, is the muscle mass down there. I just get sore around the knees. I've had a couple strains in there, soft tissue strains, and I think it's just overworked because my legs aren't strong.
Right.
So when I'm using them, I'm just overexerting.
Yep.
So this would be a conversation we would have. You want to get stronger? Cool. Let's not squat 4 days a week. Let's squat once or twice and do some sled work.
I think some of it is also, and when I know I'm going to do it, it's just a question of getting ready for it. Like, okay, let me build it in to my schedule.
Yep.
Let me make sure I'm not eating like crap.
Yep.
Let me make sure my sleeping and recovery is on point.
Yep.
And I can figure out, because a lot of times it wasn't so much the volume, it was my inadequate life recovery system. My work was like driving me nuts.
Yeah.
And it was probably the stress of all of that, which really hurt me in terms of
Stress is a killer.
progressing well in terms of my athletic progress. And so, I know we have cycles, and you yourself are planning when you're going to start to like dip and then rise.
Yep.
And I'm doing the same thing.
Good.
I'm going to plan that. Good. And as long as I got my outside life conditions set up, which I'm figuring out much better now.
Yep.
And whatever you want to use, devices like a Whoop or look at your macros.
Or ring. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Making sure your nutrition is on point, tracking macros and making sure all that's good. Then I'm like, all right, now I'm ready to go to my coach and say, let's hit something and chase after it for the next cycle.
Ding, 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 right there. He's lining other things up. He's not just making the decision today, like, I want an online coach. Let's start tomorrow. I'm motivated, Dave. Like, let's go. Get the other shit ready. Because if your only plan, like I have someone new starting next level this week, all right? If your only plan is to just work out more, it's not going to work, all right? It will not work. And that's where the online coach, especially if you're hiring someone that's satellite, they don't see you. That's most programs. You're on your own. You can lie every single time you text. But if right now, like that's why we're going to kind of turn this conversation to what I'm doing at the gym now.
Yep.
Again, not promoting anything. I'll tell you this right now. I'm not taking on any more next level people for a while just because I have too many right now. And so so I'm not promoting anything. When you are texting a coach, emailing a coach, messaging a coach through the app, and that's really your only means of communication, I have found that it's very easy to lie about that kind of stuff. And it worked as hard as I could. And again, you're just looking at scores. You're not looking at the other 23 hours a day. And I can tell right now there are certain people I work with that when they say they got their nutrition lined up, they're paying attention to sleep, I see it physically on them, right? Not that they look good, they're leaned out, they're like cut, they're shredded, they're moving better, they have more energy, they don't look like a train wreck in the middle of a workout, like they look like they actually have fixed the lifestyle stuff. And honestly, I Instagram some of these guys, see what they're doing on the weekends. If you're getting trashed every weekend, but you tell me that you really are dedicated to become a better CrossFitter, I'm like in my head, like you're a liar.
That is true.
And I don't say anything to you that I've never said to myself. Like I've lied to myself and saying I'm working my ass off, but I look at some outside factors. I'm like, I came up short there. I didn't fully commit to this part of my life to make my body recover better, right? I'm not trying to cut out stress in my life to help recover, right? That's a big deal with an online coach. That what I'm doing right now with Bison is I get to program both. When people come onto a next level program, I program their Bison WODs, and I usually will start to steer them every now and then. Like I told Amy this week, I've told Coda, I tell Liz every week, like, nope, that workout looks fun, right? Yeah, you're not doing it, because you're doing the ring muscle up EMOM the day before.
Aw.
Yeah, I know. So, but that's where if you have an online coach who doesn't know what you're doing at your gym, you start to make some immature decisions. Like that WOD looks cool, right? Guys, we're always gonna have cool WODs, and you're not gonna be able to do them all. And that's just it, And I like having a focus in the gym that if I know the gym's focusing on it, I'm not going to put that much attention on. Like right now, we're going through this toes to bar, wall ball, power row circuit in the gym, and clean and jerks. That's our strength focus for the summer. I'm not going to have the next level athletes work on that much over the summer. I'm going to kind of cut that out. And if you really want to work on it, if we feel like it's a weakness of yours, like make sure you get to Bison on those days.
How honest would you say you were with your online coach? And now that you are transitioning off, did you give your online coach a fair shake? Because you tried to take stuff off your plate in terms of stress and burdens and responsibilities for this last
18 months
competitive cycle. But but did you really, and how are you going to clean all that stuff up even more for the next competitive cycle?
Yeah, so one thing I think I wasn't very honest with my online coach about was, again, like I always, I'm going to try to like almost, I should just be honest about this now. I never really liked to tell him if I was banged up. Not pride. I wasn't like embarrassed about it. I just hated the feeling of making him do more for me. And then I've told him that before. He's like, dude, like this is why you're paying me.
Of course.
I know. And I'm like, all right, I get it.
It is a shortcoming of your personality.
Yeah. And it's like, all right, so I got to be a little bit more honest and blunt about that. But like that quad strain, like I'm still dealing with it today. Like, and this happened 6 weeks ago.
Is that Norwegian stoicism?
My Vikings.
That's right.
And I'm not bragging about it either. Like, I know it's actually, if you have an online coach, you have to be overly honest. And that's one thing I think I came up short with because, that training leading up to semifinals, it sucked. I was like, I didn't do everything that was handed to me. And I didn't want to be the guy that's like, hey, man, I'm hurt again. The stigma of being a master's athlete. And I've told him before, I was like, I know you deal with, like, I remember it was almost embarrassed when I had my first call with him. And he's like, what are your goals? I was like, I want to make the games. I want to win the games. That's what I want to do in the Masters division. And I was almost embarrassed to say, because like everyone wants to say that. And is it realistic? Is it realistic for me? I don't know. But sometimes it's embarrassing for me to say that because I know thousands of people say it just because they don't know what to say. Like they don't know what their goal should be. And I've had conversations with my coach about that. But now that like Legends is coming up, Masters Fitness Collective, it's a little bit more realistic to make those things. Or now that we have this top 10% goal, which I've always said, I think most people can get there. It just might, it could take years, depending on where you're at right now. But it's not an unrealistic goal.
Okay.
Making the games and winning the games, it's a little unrealistic for most people, but it still drives me to, I want to get there. You know?
I think making the games is realistic.
Yeah, no, I do too, and I actually feel more confident about that right now, even than I did last year at this time.
Yeah.
So I don't want to make this about me, but what I wasn't good about was being completely transparent with how I was feeling, because maybe he could have helped me more. Maybe he could have been like, dude, like we have to change a couple things up, because he did. On my first conversation with him was, Dave, just so you know, you're nowhere near your potential. And like, it wasn't typical coach speak. It was, you're at this level right now, and your sleep is garbage, your schedule's garbage, your training schedule's garbage. You're not really on a program. You're just, you're a grinder. Like, you just got to this level by working hard. He goes, if we refine things, and look what happened. I did refine things and had my best year ever. And so I think that if I was more honest with him, and I wasn't embarrassed to tell him that I was hurt or something didn't feel right, maybe my path would have been a little different this year.
One of the great things about having an online coach, like you said, is that you are handed workouts and you don't need as much discipline in terms of self-discipline to do this. I know why you've decided to go on your own at this point. Some of it is flexibility in terms of working your own programming in, class programming, not having to listen to or disclose everything to someone and have them spend all this time with you. Okay, fine. But how about your own self-discipline? Is it also because you just hated working out by yourself all the time?
So that's where I think I almost started to feel like I didn't enjoy training as much because I was by myself, and like I am motivated. I worked my ass off. I never felt like I wasn't working hard, but I always felt like there were a lot of sessions where I felt like I had something more to give that I didn't give because I was by myself. I didn't, maybe a little bit too much time on my phone in between sets, or I would like someone would come up to me and talk to me in the middle of a session, and like all this 10 minutes later, I'm like, oh man, like I'm training right now. Where when you're in a class setting, that doesn't happen because why? The coach we have good coaches in our gym. They're very good about warm up, demo, 5 minutes, starting 3, 2, 1, go. You don't get to choose. You don't have the freedom to go back and forth. Like when you're on your own in the gym, it's on you. And in some cases, that's nice. But it's also nice to have someone, like when I'm here as an athlete, like I don't view myself as owner, as coach. Like I am one of the athletes in the class. I don't feel myself better or worse. I hate being singled out when I'm in a class. Like, oh, like Dave's here. Like I hate it because I don't want anyone else to feel that way. And I don't want to feel that way. I am one of the people in class. And because you get to be a soldier, you just get to be like, yo, do this, Dave. Yo, do this. Yo, Dave, 3, 2, 1, go. Like I'm literally going to tell you when you're allowed to start your workout. Where you're on your own, you're just kind of like, you have almost too much freedom, and if you can lose track of your discipline a little bit.
So what are the characteristics that you've seen for people that are well suited for online coaching? Because you've seen a lot of athletes. So which ones are the ones that are good at doing it this way?
Good question. I would say the people that are suited for it are the people that have very specific goals, and they've tried something for a long time with a healthy lifestyle, and it's just not working anymore.
Okay.
And it could be like when I say specific, it doesn't need to be like I want to make top 10% or I want to make semifinals or games. It could just be like I want to work on my muscle ups, handstand push-ups, my gymnastics, my aerobic capacity, my strength, right? Very specific things. And then that's part one. And within that part one umbrella is you have everything lined up lifestyle-wise, all right? And part two is you are very disciplined when you were by yourself. And I actually feel like I was more disciplined about a year ago than I was now about just getting in there and feeling like, all right, hungry to train, where I would say for the past 6 to 8 months, I felt like it was another job. And it was partially because we talked about this earlier. I was trying to get in outside of class times, and the way my schedule works and coaching schedule, it was tough. It was tough to get here at certain times, and I always made it happen. But then I felt like I was like overly rushed because I was trying so hard to be done before classes. Like there are a lot of sessions I cut short because of that reason. And so if you're someone that has a really tough schedule or you have a lot going on, I don't know if it's a good idea because there's less structure. Where when you're in a class, like we're pretty good, 50 to 55 minutes, and you're out and you got your full session in. So that's where I think the two candidates. And then for someone that can sustain it, last one here, the person that can sustain it for an X amount of time is you have to be cognizant of your mindset. And I'm not talking about good training days, bad training days. We all have both of those throughout the year. But if you have weeks, months of stretches where you just aren't having fun with it, you don't feel like you're full sending. Joe Piero training by himself, and then all of a sudden it blew up in his face a little bit at Granite Games because he's always by himself. I think that's where you should take a break from it. And I think when people leave an online coach, it shouldn't mean forever. unless they are really confident they can move forward without the coach. It could be like, hey, like I tell next level people all the time, like, yo, take a couple months off, week off, 2 weeks off. And then some people realize like, all right, I really missed that structure. I need to get back on it. But I think it's smart to kind of cycle on and off an online coach if you are getting to the burnt out stage.
I would say, for example, with Joe, not so much blowing up, but he maxed out what he could do
by himself
on his own. Like he really did max that out,
and he got to a very high level,
like crazy high. But you're right. There probably are things he could do now in addition to that to push him up even a little higher than that. The other thing is we've always talked about enjoying the process.
Yeah,
and if there have been many days in the past when I would train by myself and I truly enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Like it's just fun to go and do something.
I just did one today.
Yeah.
Loved it. I loved it.
And you have to be able to find that joy. And if you don't have that joy working out either in class or by yourself, then you're probably not going to really...
Yeah, it's like an additional stressor.
Right.
And I'd like to be able to modify things on the fly, whether it's a day or a week, based on how I feel. And again, I'm so like when a coach sends me a program, I feel guilty if I don't do it. So if I know something's not feeling right and I'm kind of fighting through it a little bit because the coach sends it to me, like I don't have that if I do now have that freedom,
right?
If I have my next 3 weeks mapped out, for between a blend of Bison and a blend of some of my own stuff. But I know that if something kind of flares up, I'm not going to push through just for the sake that it was programmed. Right. And I don't need to answer to anyone for that.
It's not about like having to love every workout.
Oh yeah.
And there are certain days you definitely just have to drag yourself in and do stuff, even if it's a class workout. But if it's constant and if you have a sense of dread and like you said, it's like a job, then I would go back to the group training and then hopefully have a good gym, But yeah, that's kind of like where I want to wrap up my thoughts on the online coaching. Do you have anything else? No, I learned a lot from watching you train and seeing your thought processes and what you were going through. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to my next year. I'm like really fired up right now. Like just I think that whole week off, being away, and then I didn't train this past week, didn't eat this week, and I feel just like kind of happy and excited to be back in what I think is going to be my best situation for the next year. But I'm not for or against the online coach. I'm so happy I did it for the past couple years, and I think it made me a better athlete, and it's going to make me a better coach, and I'm going to progress with both down the road. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time out of your day to listen to the HWPO podcast. Be on the lookout for next week's episode.